Welcome to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. I'm Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
This show features questions from the Personality Hacker community that we answer in about 10 minutes. We've been using personality types in our coaching for years, and we'd love to answer your questions about personal growth through the lens of type. You can find out more about us at personalityhacker.com. Okay, now let's hear today's question.
Hi, Joel and Antonia. I have a question regarding how to convert non-believers of Myers Briggs. I'm a INFJ. I come from an entire sensor family, and naturally, I really love your podcasts, and I've tried to send them a few just to be like, hey guys, why don't you listen to this? I think it would help us understand each other better. And they're not interested at all because they find the whole idea of Myers Briggs quite ridiculous. The only thing I could get them to do was take an online test. I don't know which one they took, but my ESFJ sister typed as an ENTP, and my ISTP father typed as an INTJ. And I tried to explain to them why that could be in simple language, but they responded very defensively with I think kind of a typical sensor response to intuitives, how you don't know that, how you don't know me better than I know myself, how could you possibly know what type I am? So I'm feeling a bit frustrated, and I just want to know if there's been any ways you guys have had success converting people, or at least getting people on board with the idea who were very skeptical or, didn't believe in it.
Thank you for the question. How do I convince people in my life, friends and family, and the people I meet? This is powerful stuff. It's changed my life. I've seen it work for me in my relationships, in my personal growth journey. But people are so skeptical. They don't want to buy into this. It could help them, and they just don't want to see it. So what can I do, Joel and Antonia, to convince all the skeptics out there that this really works? This is real. This is something that could be useful in their lives.
Oh, well, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you find a way, let me know. Because I am a person who makes my living off of this, and I don't think my family could be less impressed by anything. I haven't figured out a way to get them to even understand what I do, much less think that there's any credibility or validity to it at all.
We literally wrote a book.
Yeah.
And it's sitting on I don't think it's on your parents' shelf. It's on my parents' shelf. I think that my mom's read parts of it.
Yeah.
Most of my family, though, does not care that I wrote a book. I'm into personality types. Like, people in your life. I mean, there's this verse in the Bible where Jesus leaves his hometown and shakes the dust off his feet because none of his friends and family will listen to him.
Yeah.
So even Jesus had this problem, when he's trying to give his messages out. So I think this is common to everyone. The people close to us tend to disregard what we bring to them.
Yeah, I believe the scripture is in the version of the Bible I grew up with, a prophet is without honor in their hometown. So I think that, you're in good company. You know, you can just be like, I'm like the Messiah. And we all have this challenge. I will say this, though, not to just be a naysayer, because I do think that there's a lot of challenge when you're trying to talk people in your family into caring about something you care about if they have any amount of skepticism. Because what's in here isn't just, I mean, you talked about being the only intuitive in a family full of sensors, but I think having a lot of sensors in our audience has taught me that that's not necessarily the thing that makes a person not into type, is that they're a sensor. In fact, there's tons of sensors that are into type. So it's got to be something else. And I think just to address that for a moment before I talk about this other thing that I think might actually be the solution. But I think one of the challenges that some sensors have with things like personality type is that the sensory mind is programmed to see distinctions and individual elements. They're wired to see the trees of the forest, and each tree is different. So if you try to focus on a pattern where they can clearly see that there is a tree that is not conforming to that pattern, their brain is going to go to that individual tree because it's wired for that. It's wired to see the distinctions between things. This is where being detail-oriented comes in. This is where being present to the moment comes in. Like you're not, as a sensor, naturally wired to divorce yourself from the experience or to see a bigger picture, which requires you to step back from what's going on. You're wired to be there, to be present in the moment. And if you're using introverted sensing or memory, to record that for future, remunerations. So there is a limitation to the natural attraction a sensor is going to have to things that require a lot of intense pattern recognition. But that said, all sensors have an intuitive function, and there are plenty of sensors who very much like to apply the intuitive part of who they are to personality type because it has served them. But I have noticed that the reason why intuitives tend to be more intuit than sensors are is that a lot of intuitives already feel like there's something weird or off about them. And type gives them an explanation for what's going on. And I found that the sensors that are into type are usually people who have had a similar experience, but in their own version of it. Meaning that there is something about them that felt off or weird, and personality types, and in particular Myers Briggs, helped explain that. Like, I know a sensor that was raised in an intuitive family, became very interested in type. I know of a sensor who's a feeler that was raised in a thinker family, became very interested in type. Same thing with judger or perceiver, introvert, extrovert. Like, there are elements here that type explains that sensors, when they need an explanation like that, when they need to try to figure out the puzzle pieces to why they feel so weird, this is something that fills in those blanks. But if you're not a person who is experiencing any sort of, I'm an alien seeking a mothership for any reason, regardless of what your dichotomies are or cognitive functions are, if you've never experienced that, then type has a limitation to its initial appeal. You have to learn why it's valuable over time, and that's usually through a situation that introduces you to it that has a form of credibility already. Like, take, for example, a university that might give an assessment, or a career or a job that might give an assessment, and then the person is introduced to its effectiveness or to its validity through an institution that put its stamp of approval on it originally. So those are usually the contexts where sensors become interested. And once they are, oftentimes they get just as interested as intuitives. But it doesn't sound like your family is in that situation. So let's address your specific concern, which is, how do I convince people who are not already into it and in fact have a high level of skepticism, and to a point where when they took an assessment, it came out as probably the wrong types. And I tried to explain that, and then all I did was end up annoying them by indicating that I might know something about them that they don't know about themselves. And in that situation, I have learned that there's only one thing a person can do to encourage people to want to know what is that person's secret sauce. And that is, become the best version of yourself. Do all the things that give you results that make other people notice. So take, for example, in a family. If you're used to fighting with a family member about a certain thing, maybe you have a bunch of history, a bunch of baggage, and every time that thing gets brought up, now you guys are off to the races and arguing. But all of a sudden, you just stop arguing about that thing. In fact, it doesn't seem to ruffle you. In fact, you seem to shrug and hand it over to the other person. Sure, you're right, and you always were. Now, all of a sudden, they're taking notice of you because your behavior is changing in a way that facilitates your happiness. You're growing. Just like when you see somebody who's got this really amazingly sculpted body and they start giving you exercise advice, you go, you know what? There's some credibility there because that person is clearly seeing the returns on their effort. So I'm going to listen to what they have to say. The same thing happens in personal growth. If you are doing the same thing with your spirit, so to speak, your identity, you're becoming sort of that sculpted person, but you're doing it through character. A lot of times people will want to know what you're doing. What is it that you're doing that's making you happier? What is it that you're doing that's helping you be more zen or more chill or more peaceful or get the success you're looking for, or find the relationships or have relationship success? Oftentimes when you have those things that other people desire, or you're just not taking the bait from your family or friends that they're used to you doing, then that's when they start getting interested in the how, not just in the what.
True learning equals behavior change. It's something we talk with all of our coaching clients and students and the people we work with here at Personality Hacker. that if you're truly learning something in your life, you're going to alter the way you act and behave in the outer world. And this, we believe, is self-evident to people. We believe that that's a phrase that we teach clients and students, but really it's unconscious that we understand when someone truly learns something or changes, their behavior is different. So what Antonia is talking about here is displaying different behavior, leading a cookie crumb trail intuitively for people to go, something is different about that person. They learned something, they upgraded, they scaled up or leveled up in their life. I want to know what they learned. It's almost like this unconscious trigger to go seek that information or that learning that you have. So the best way to do this, like Antonia mentioned, is through your behavior, the way you display your actions. They speak louder than words. Demonstrate, don't articulate.
Yeah, and I don't know of any other way. Now, to be fair, that's helped with some people in my life, and other people still couldn't give a rat's butt. So at the end of the day, I think that when dealing with skeptics, you just let them be skeptical. And when dealing with people who are not interested in what you're interested in, you kind of take the hit and you grieve a little bit that, you know, your family or friends are not interested enough to meet you halfway there. And just recognize you're probably doing that to them too. And some families are better about that and other families are more obnoxious. Mine tends to be more obnoxious around that. And so at the end of the day, I just kind of go, well, I guess it's just how it is, and I'm gonna have to meet them where they're at, and if I want a relationship with them, that's what I'm gonna have to do. And so at that point, you can't really do anything except for still love them and hope that at some point maybe they'll meet you halfway, and if not, well, then you got to figure out what the ROI is, and you got to figure out whether or not you're okay with that. For some, they're not going to be okay with that, and it's a deal breaker. And for others, they go, you know, maybe it's going to be okay.
Thank you so much for the question. You can ask your own question about personality types or personal growth. Visit personalityhacker.com/questions. We also have programs designed to help you with your personal growth through the lens of personality types. Again, visit personalityhacker.com and find the program that's made just for you. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. We'll talk with you on the next episode. If you're focused on personal growth, I think you'll resonate with our core content over at personalityhacker.com. We want to see you understand how your mind is wired so you can generate motivation, improve social skills, find career opportunities, and master excellent decision making. But a quick warning, we are advice and action focused in all of our articles, podcasts, and videos. This means that we attract people who like to be challenged to become excellent, to take action, to put in the work to optimize themselves, not simply just gather more information. If you are committed to personal growth and ready to radically find your inner truth, then come over and be a part of our growing community of like minds at Personality Hacker.